Anyhow, Donald Trump is talking military. And I want you to just think about this for a minute. He says he's got his plan. First of all, he said he had a plan to wipe out ISIS. Don't worry, we're going to do it so fast it'll make your head spin. It's going to be the best military plan you ever saw. It's going to be a beautiful military plan. It is like you've got the best, and he watches the shows, right? He knows, well, as he has said, he knows ISIS better than the generals do. So, Donald, what's your plan? What's your plan? And he comes out and he says, okay, here's my plan. In my first 30 days in office, I'm going to ask the generals to come up with a plan to defeat ISIS. Honest to God, I'm not making this up. If he becomes president, his plan to defeat ISIS is to ask the generals how to do it. He's going to go to the Joint Chiefs of Staff or something, or, Michael Flynn or whoever his general advisor is, and say, how do we defeat ISIS? Retired Army Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, who served 37 years in the Army and is now a national security intelligence and terrorism analyst for CNN, had some choice words to come up to say about this. This is a story from CNN.com. He said, and I quote, I had to ask myself, what the hell does he think we've been trying to do for the last 14 years in terms of al-Qaeda? He was on with Anderson Cooper. He says, this is simplistic. It's insulting. He says it shows a complete lack of understanding of the threat and the ways to fight it. It's a sophomoric approach to elements of national security policy, because if he's just calling in the military, he's missing the point that there are several other elements of national security that will help defeat ISIS. But Donald Trump in November of last year said, I know more about ISIS than the generals do. Believe me. Right. ISIS is, I've talked about this before. It's been quite a while though. ISIS is playing the same game that Hitler and Tojo did. ISIS is a death cult. The Nazis were a death cult. The Japanese government essentially became a death cult as they entered World War II, where people were volunteering to fly kamikaze planes onto the decks of American aircraft carriers, where the murder of people was celebrated. The various death marches and tortures in China, the rape of Nanking, all these kind of things. The Nazis. I don't have to go through the list of things, to the evidence that this was a death cult, right down to the point where the SS officers had a skull and crossbones, a death's head, as their logo on their uniforms. It was a death cult. And it captured the minds of people the way cults do. Cults do that. And it wasn't until we defeated them militarily that the people, once the cult was broken, the people who had been good Nazis or good Japanese during World War II, good followers of Tojo, kind of went and woke up and were like, holy cow, how could we have done this? How could we have been suckered in by this death cult? How did this happen? Well, it happened the way it always does. It happened the way it happened to those 200-300 people in Jonestown who drank the Kool-Aid with Jim Jones back in the 80s. It happened the way that people joined Warren Jeff's cult. And now the cult leader is the polygamous Mormon sect. It's not quite a death cult, but it's a bizarre cult, and the leader is now on the run. He slipped, according to the FBI, he used olive oil to get the tracking bracelet off his ankle. According to his publicist, he was taken to heaven in the rapture, but he's on the lam, one way or the other. But it's like people get sucked into these cults. Libertarianism is a cult. The whole Gary Johnson thing is a cult. The thing about the Gary Johnson libertarianism is how deceptive it is. I mean, he talks about, oh, we've got to stop the war on drugs. Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. I think there's a general consensus on that. Maybe not among Republicans, but among pretty much everybody else. But that doesn't mean that liberals should be voting libertarian, because Gary Johnson also wants to end all public education. He wants to end all state support for colleges. So you can only go to college if you're like Gary Johnson, you've got millionaire and billionaire donors, or if, like the Koch brothers, you inherited millions from daddy, or like Donald Trump. Gary Johnson wants to do away with the EPA. Why? Well, because the EPA is a pain in the butt for Georgia Pacific and Koch Industries. I mean, it's just a total pain in the butt. Regulating how much poison they can put in the air and water. Regulations. These are job-killing regulations, don't you know? Actually, they're job-creating regulations, because somebody's got to build the scrubbers. Somebody's got to clean up the water and air. But anyhow, I digress. Forgive the rant there. I should have done that at the top of the hour.